Hey, Enneagram friend. This is Abby Rodriguez, your certified and IEA accredited Enneagram teacher and coach. In this space, I'll give you a sneak peek into real live coaching sessions and teach you how to apply the wisdom of the Enneagram into your life for personal growth. The invitation each episode is to take on a posture of curiosity about yourself and others, so that you can shift from merely surviving to fully thriving in your everyday life. Visit my website at abbyrodriguez.com and listen into this episode to learn more. In this episode, I share the coaching space with an Enneagram 7 about navigating the frustration he experiences when what is hoped for, or the ideal, so to speak, is not met. Sevens often have these moments or seasons where their rosy-colored glasses kind of get cracked and they just can't find the silver lining anymore. And so when it comes in, it weighs heavy on them. It's like all the tender feelings that the type structure was avoiding come flooding in at once, and it's exhausting and overwhelming. In our conversation, we talk about loss, the loss that we naturally experience in transitions, and how we can honor what was lost and also find closure. Okay, friends, let's take on a posture of curiosity as you listen into my coaching conversation. Well, what feels most helpful for us to explore during our time together, during our coaching space?
Well, when I saw that you had posted about it, and I saw you had like background in the narrative tradition, I'm not very familiar with it, but I have heard of it.
Yeah.
So I think I was very interested in kind of even seeing what it looks like. I've never been through an Enneagram coaching session, so I was very curious about that. So thank you for even seeing me and things like that, because I think I'm curious in being like getting a degree in some kind, or getting certified in Enneagram things as well.
Yeah.
Even for just like the teaching world, or even in like an executive like leadership role, not like necessarily in a counseling role. I think that's too far above what I wanted to do. So I was curious in that way, just to see even what it looked like. And then I obviously I know 30 minutes is a short amount of time, so I don't know what all is even possible. My brain always goes huge of like, we don't know each other at all. So it's like, what can you even get done? So my thoughts were to explore dominant type 7, but I'm never aware of what the wings would look like for me. I can never find out what it looks like for me. So people say, what's your wing? I'm like, truly don't know. Can't figure it out. And maybe, so I don't know. I would love to know your opinion if it's both in different realms. I think I can I just don't know. And then in the variants as well, I think I'm curious to at least explore, but if that's obviously not accomplishable, advice on how to note it for me going forward, to be aware of what I could be, just because I want to be aware myself, or know that it might not be either. But then more on a personal level, I am about to start the school year and I'm moving into a coaching role. So if you're not familiar with education, they have like athletic coaches, they have academic coaches. So if you were a teacher, I would come into your classroom like an athletic coach and watch you teach and give you tips and tricks of the trade after. So it's a huge honor. It's only my 4th year teaching, so they see something in me to do that. So I'm very honored by that, but I'll also get to teach as well. So I get kind of both, best of both worlds, because I love teaching. So moving into a new role, more so just stress with summer ending, but not because of work. Like I love where I work. I think I'm in the right profession. So it's not this like toxic work environment thing. However, personally, I think I'm very in like a frustrated season. I feel like I'm frustrated all the time. And I think I can note the different reasons. So I've like listed them out, but I think I know why I'm frustrated. I just have no idea how I respond to my frustration. So whether that's avoidant of it, like I don't know what to do with my frustration. So it's like, whether it's being annoyed and irritated and not talking about it and just having that demeanor and like kind of affecting wherever I am, or I think I wrote it down because I might not think of it clearly, but I wrote it down what I'm meaning by that frustration. I just feel like I'm frustrated in a frustrated season. And I think moving into a new role, why do I respond the ways that I do is what I wrote down. Why do I do that? So it's like, exploring the wings variants, and then kind of this, I can definitely dive into it more, the frustration stuff personally, but that's kind of why do I respond to my frustration in these ways.
Yeah, for sure. Well, so let's start with this, the personal piece of this frustration aspect, and see if we can kind of parse it out a little bit. So,
Okay.
if you're willing to share, what are some of the components that you are able to name that are either supporting or comprising that frustration?
I have written them down.
I love that.
That's
That's great. That's good processing.
that's how my mind works. I don't usually commit to writing things down because I think I'm avoidant of them to like see it. It's almost like checking my bank account. It's like I don't want to look at it, so I don't even
Yep.
want to write it down sometimes. Summer ending. I think it's I'm a very summer water body type of person. Like I love to be outside and those things.
Yeah.
This season of life, my friendships have really changed a lot. So like just turned third age, I think could be an underlining frustration, fear, unknown. So I just turned 30, and in the midst of like pandemic and things like that, my birthday was surprisingly really good, and a lot of people showed up, so that felt great. But a lot of my closest friends had like moved, and so like just this
Mm,
different season, and I don't find myself very. I think my reaction to that is like I don't really feel like even reaching out to them. I feel like I don't have any. I obviously do have my people here, but like a lot of them have moved this year. The people I would hang out with often, so that's kind of a weird season of life for me. Um, I'm currently single, but like pursuing dating, but it's like the both end of that. It's like I doing the responsibilities of singleness is really hard. Like
yeah.
adulting, those that I don't like that phrase, but like the things you have to do as an adult are very hard to do alone, like
Yeah.
managing your household. But I love the freedom. I'm very independent, and I love not having to check in with anybody or hearing what someone else is up to. It's like I don't really know what you're up to, but I don't, that could be the season. So I love that
Mm-hmm.
aspect. Um, and at the season where it's like I wish I could just be dating one of my best friends, but like that's not an option for me right now. It just doesn't feel like I am. I just don't want to
Yeah.
get to know somebody else. It sounds so exhausting. So
Yeah.
getting to know somebody else to the level I do, I feel like I have friends that I know well, and the idea of like dating or marrying somebody when I don't even know them at all just sounds like, why would I do that? That doesn't sound at all. That sounds like work and not what I think a relationship contribute should look like, contributing to my well-being, our well-being, other people's well-being.
Yeah.
So like that kind of that back and forth singleness and dating. Um, yeah, it's like I don't know if I truly feel like I have people around me that I enjoy right now, and
Hmm.
I don't know if it's that's what's making me frustrated that I don't enjoy them, or if I'm frustrated and that's why I don't enjoy them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like I'm not sure which one's first.
Right, the chicken or the egg. What's compelling
Yeah,
what? Yeah. So as you talk through that list, and I think it is really helpful that you've kind of identified it so that it doesn't just swirl around of like, I'm just frustrated, but you've kind of
yeah.
given some legs to it. Like here's some of the roots that are kind of forming this. So as you talk through all of that with me just now in this moment, I'm curious if there's an emotion that comes up for you. So do you feel frustrated talking about it? Or are there other things that are coming up? Because you're saying some things too of like tired, exhaustion. There's also some sense of loneliness or maybe sadness,
Right.
grief because people have transitioned. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but just kind of
No,
giving some
yeah.
ideas of what are the other emotions that come up in there as you talk through this with me.
I think ironically I don't feel frustration as the overlining one. I don't know if annoyed would be similar, but it's like I almost feel like more annoyed than
Hmm.
frustrated or sad.
Yeah.
Um, but like I definitely would recognize like all the things I'm saying are lonely, but tired is for sure one as well. It's like, yeah, I definitely just feel the even the words of me. I know I'm using words and thinking, but it's like I do feel tired, or what I'm describing is like tiredness. But it's like I think I feel it's like disappointed more so. Maybe it's like I don't
Yeah.
like the idea that it's like I'm not connected with friends right now just doesn't feel like it should be. So my yeah, it should be what I'm who I am right now. So I think that's more just like a disappointed or embarrassed kind
Hmm.
of thing.
Yeah.
Which I know there's a lot of different words there, but it's like I don't feel frustrated right now. When I was thinking about the personal things beforehand or in the past, definitely things that make me frustrated, but I don't feel frustrated about them right now.
Hmm. Yeah. sometimes when people use the language of tired or exhausted, sometimes there's a physical element, right? Of like, I haven't taken care of my body, right? Like I'm
Sure.
physically tired. But sometimes we use that language to communicate almost this sense of like hopelessness of like,
Yeah.
is it gonna get
Apathy almost.
easier? Yes. Like, is it gonna get better? How much more can I take
Is this the new
almost?
norm? I'm like, is this my new norm? Is this what getting older is like?
Mm-hmm.
And not in the sense of like, oh my gosh, I'm so old. It's like I don't feel that way. It's just like as life progresses, as I get older, I don't think that life gets easier, but I don't necessarily want to get harder.
Yeah.
It's like I don't think it gets easier because I think we have different challenges that present itself. But I find myself in this rut of like, yeah, very much kind of like I don't know if disenfranchised is the right word at all. For some reason, that word's in my head. It's like feels like very unmagical right now. I don't know if the word
Yeah.
was like very
Disenchanted.
disenchanted. That's the word. I was like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I wonder in that, and you tell me if this resonates, but oftentimes sevens have these moments or these seasons where it's almost like the rosy colored glasses get broken and they see
yeah,
reality. And it's these moments of realizing, like, gosh, this sucks, or
mm-hmm.
like, this is really hard, or like, I'm really lost. Like, I don't know what to do next, or I'm exhausted, right? It's these moments where there's not a silver lining that's obvious, or you could muster the positivity to make it better, but you're just too tired. Like you
Yeah,
just can't fabricate it, and it doesn't feel
right,
obvious. Does that resonate in your experience as you're talking through this?
for sure. I think one thing I forgot as well, but like I with sevens, like when I read about sevens and the false optimism or the positive outlook, those things, it's like, yeah, I think I used to do that all the time when I was in high school, or like I thought I was a two growing up in a Christian realm, like I think so many people do. But definitely that positive outlook of like the inside out where joy and sadness are just like she's like just shake it off, you'll be fine, everything's fine, but it's like very disingenuous or very like dismissive. And I don't think I do that, but I do think I have part of that internal like outlook. And so like I would not see myself as a person who's like not seeing harsh realities. That's what
Mm-hmm.
the main thing I'm trying to say. It's like I feel like I haven't had rose colored glasses, but I guess at some point, specifically with education, kind of like this hopelessness of I what we're trying to do with children. I teach fifth grade,
Yeah.
and like on a deeper level, it feels so hopeless sometimes with the education piece of I feel like I'm being worked against. And we be clear, not with students, but like I feel like I've had the best year I had last year, education wise as well. And this is new news today or yesterday, but like we just didn't get the indicator of success that I was expecting. And I'm like, I feel so gypped right now
Yeah.
by an upper unknown person of like, what is going on? Like,
Mm-hmm.
give me the rules so that it's like yelling at the ref, like, let them play. Like, I want these kids to let them play your game or whatever it is. Not even in a political sense, but it's like, I want them to do well, but I don't know how I can even prepare them because I think I did the best I could. And so it's like that kind of fits that, like, what am I doing?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I enjoy what I'm doing. I don't want to change my job. I love being with the kids. I like going to be coaching as well. But this ultimate goal of like them doing well on a test, think what you will of that. It's like, I feel like that was like the best we could have had it, like a best go at it.
Yeah.
And we still did fine, but just like not, yeah, it's like, that's
Yeah.
a very broken, that fits in my head. So I resonate with that phrase. All that goes to say.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it sounds like even as I hear you talking, right, there's this feeling of like, we did the best we could. And also I mean, even as you talk about this education piece, like I can see in your nonverbals, you're lighting up of like, this is good. Like, I love what I do. And
Yes.
my kiddos are doing great, right? Like there's this joy in the celebration,
The
but then there's,
best kids I've taught, like the smartest, like the smartest level of academics I've seen so far in my short career. I was like,
yeah,
why didn't we crush it? Why? I don't
right.
understand why we didn't.
Yeah. And so there's like this joy and celebration of what was, right, as you got to experience it. that also coincides with this feeling of like hopelessness of like, if we did the best that we could and it still didn't meet your standards, like it's almost like this, you're holding in this space joy and hopelessness at the same time.
Okay.
And I think as, you know, the type 7 structure often wants to fix the hopelessness, wants to fix any sense of like sadness or grief, because it feels like those two can't go together. But with the analogy you just gave of Inside Out, right, the real reality is like they actually go hand in hand. And most of the time when we have these emotions, it's usually not just one, it's a whole bag of things, right? We feel joy and this celebration as we think about this experience that we've had in education and with our kids accomplishing. And then there's also this like hopelessness of like, but what else do you want from me? Or what did we need to do? You know, and I think in general, like 7s often will bump up against the powers that be, not because they're trying to like overturn everything or like lead the march. Sometimes that's what's happening, but it's usually there's just this constriction that they feel. It's almost like the limitations, right? When you're bumping up against limitations, oftentimes authority or standards, you know, these regulations or expectations, they just feel like limitations. It feels like I can't thrive if you're going to ask for the test score. Like I can't be my best self in this calling, in this vocation that I've accepted, if you're going to keep grading us this way or whatever it might be. And so it sounds like some of that is happening in there too. How does that sound as I kind of share that back with you?
I think sometimes I don't ever think I'm a 3. I don't think I'm this type at all, but I can resonate, I think, to common things with 3s where like at least how I perceive 3s, where it's like, I have no problem with a test. And if we have a test, I want to crush it. So I think like, I don't necessarily want to, I guess like, I think I do bump up against restrictions, but it's like, I want to do the test. And it's like, if you're going to give me a test, like my first thought is like, I have people who they took the test, teachers that they did the test, and for them the response is like, yeah, that's what it is. Which helpful phrase, but not here. It's not helpful for me here where I'm like, no, it's like what's being missed in this administration level, leadership level, where it's like, do I want to help them figure it out? It's like, I want the test to represent what we know. I'm fine with it. If we're going to do that, I want it to accurately portray, and I just don't think that was fair, and that's really frustrating to me. So it's like, what's being missed here from this top-down level where it's like, you're not testing what I was told to teach them at the level I was told to teach them. It's just not matching. And I was like, that's just not fair. And it's really frustrating to me. But I don't know if that matches. Yeah.
Well, and it sounds like even as you talk through that, I don't know if you're as familiar with harmony triads, but type 7s fall in the frustration type. And so, and a lot of that has to do with ideals not being met, right?
This
so
is how it's supposed to be. Like, the test should represent what we know, and it doesn't. Right.
Yes, like you're using some of that language of like, it's just not fair, but it's bigger than that, I think, as you're talking through it. It's like there's this ideal that education can be this, and it should be this. And I've seen glimpses of it being this, but then when you give me this test, you're destroying that, right? Like you're taking all of that out of it. And so I think in that, it sounds like this, you know, this grading or testing or whatever it might be, is part of what's triggering kind of just the frustration of the ideal not being met.
Yeah. It's like, especially that does match for sure of, I'm not mad about the test, but it's like, what can we do to make sure that this test is what you want it to be? But then I'm like, there's thoughts of like, do you want the test to represent what we know? I feel like I'm being gypped here. It's like, maybe you don't want it to represent what we know, because from other assessments that are not even mine, but it's like they are on grade level above, or they had so much growth, and they're matching just what I expect a 5th grader to know. Like in a privileged area, in a impoverished area, it's like this group crushed it. And so it's just like, it's so frustrating. But that does match, I think, of like, can we make this test be accurate? Like, I'm not against the test. I'm fine with the test, you know? So that's just, but
let it match. Let it match what is actually true. Like what actually took place.
Can we all come together and figure it out? Like, I don't know you. It's like, let's come together. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, for sure. you had said when you were talking through kind of this list of things that had
Sure.
caused this frustration, and this was kind of a recent thing that you added on to that.
Yes.
But I do want to go back to some of those pieces. And part of often what happens with sevens in coaching is that you are so forward thinking that I will rewind you a couple of times.
I was hoping that you would. I was like, oh gosh, we're going to talk about this. The one I added at the end, I was like, we'll talk about that. Like,
yes.
everywhere.
And you also could always, I mean, I realize have a short amount of time, but in coaching relationships, I always tell sevens, if we are talking about a tangent that you don't want to sit on, let me know and we'll go to a different thing. And I might ask you to go back because we need to. But again, it's a short amount of time. So I want to talk through these other pieces though that you had mentioned. And really, as we talked about, summer ending, these friends transitioning, you named some of the sense of exhaustion and maybe some of these other pieces. Again, what emotions you add to it of, that feeling hard, hopeless to navigate things with your household, single, and all those pieces.
Yes.
As I hear you talk through all of that, my outside observation is it sounds like there is a lot of transitions that are happening, or even the awareness that they're happening is happening at the same time.
Yeah.
And oftentimes in transitions, whether they're good or challenging, there's always a sense of loss. When you stop something and start something new, even if the new thing is awesome and you're going into this coaching role that is great and good, there's still things that get lost as we transition. And I'm wondering how much space or time or emotional energy you've given to naming those transitions and kind of acknowledging those losses that you've had in this season.
I think definitely small amount of time given to those things, which I think that seems like on track of my normal behavior. I think with things I would categorize as being difficult or sad, as generic or as like on brand as it is for the type. I do think I'm good with the awareness of just being like, even to name the emotion, like, hey, I'm just really frustrated right now, and like recognizing that just being an emotion and not having really a reason. It's just I'm just frustrated. So I think I've been using that often to be like, I'm just irritated, and I think I've been able to name what has been frustrating. So those things, but sitting with it and like, I just always feel like I have to sit and think through it, but I want to try to resist the thinking process, because it's like my natural go-to is to make sense of my emotions as opposed to like just naming what they are. And I don't have the vocabulary for the emotions. They're so limited. It's like, how are you feeling? I'm like, it's
bad.
Such elementary. Yes, I don't like it. Like, I don't like how I feel. It's like I feel sick, or it's like, who knows if it's, God forbid, it's anxiety or stress. It's like that can just feel so different and feel so different ways, so many different ways.
Yeah.
Anyway, I haven't spent much time sitting with them.
Yeah. Have you ever looked at a feeling chart or feeling wheel?
I have seen them. Yes.
Yeah. So those are a really helpful tool, really for all the types, if I'm being honest, but I use them a lot with head types, because you tend to think about your emotions rather than feel your emotions. And sometimes just having better vocabulary in front of you can be really helpful, and the one that I use most often, I can actually email it to you, but it expands it out pretty far. So there's like some central emotions in the center, and then it expands it and expands it again. And so sometimes, you will always be able to find it on the outside, but you would have never realized that was actually sadness when you got to the middle, or vice versa, of like I can tell
of getting into those feelings.
Right. And it's giving you some language. Yes. Sometimes even just naming, actually what I feel right now is grief. Like, I experienced a lot of loss. There was a lot of transition. There's good things, and that's okay. I can honor that, but I can also honor that I lost some things too. Yeah. Even just naming that is helpful. But then there are things you can do to kind of practice sitting in it. Processing emotions is really just that you allow yourself to experience them. It doesn't have to be this magical thing of like, I did all these 12 steps. But the problem is either we are completely avoidant of it, or even in the moments when we know, okay, I'm irritated, I'm frustrated, we don't allow ourselves to actually experience it. We kind of just categorize it and come up with like, oh, I don't have the right to feel this way, or I do, like I need to just get over it, or like, no, that was super crappy. I get to be frustrated about that, right? But then we're actually just judging our emotion because we're categorizing it as right or wrong. We're still not feeling it. Like we're still intellectually thinking about it.
Right.
And so sometimes there are things you can do, especially like if well, as I say, loss, and that feels like it resonates when you think about this transition. I don't want to put words or emotions into your experience.
Yeah, I think definitely with just currently my friends, and I think even just the idea where even that word is scary, because I'm like, I'm frustrated with a friend where I just am avoiding even addressing with them. It's like my brain can go so far forward thinking like, I haven't lost this friend, but I'm like, that still connects in terms of this loss. Where I'm like, why am I avoiding talking to them? Yes. So it's like, yes, I think there's like fear of loss, but I don't think I should be afraid of the loss. But it's like I am, I guess, losing what they could be for me in this moment. It's like I could talk to them, but I don't want to talk to them because I still feel off about them. But I don't feel like calling them and addressing it either. So I just will sit for another week and not talk to them right now.
Yeah. And this is someone that transitioned out of being a part of your everyday friend group because they lived there. Okay, yeah. But even that, right? You can still acknowledge the loss of that season of being able to just go hang out, to just go get coffee or go get a drink together, right? Like there's some of this like doing life together that now it's trickier when you have to call, right? Like there can even just be a loss of the type of relationship you got to have, and now it's different and it's harder, or there's other things going on. And maybe it's not lost. Maybe there's just some sadness that happens in like it just not being as easy as it was,
Right.
And so even in that space, giving yourself some ability to acknowledge that. When we talk about processing loss, like when you talk about like, someone passes away and we're grieving is the language or lamenting, the language we might use. There's some practices that we might use of talking about what was, right? We share memories at a funeral, or we see photographs or things like that. And you can do, or we spend time with like people and talk about that. You can do some of those things even with other losses, right? Whether that is simple things like the loss of your summer, right? Your summer is ending, that transition's happening. It's not this dramatic thing. It happens every year. It's not a surprise, but it's still a loss, right?
But the feeling is still happening
still
the
happening
feelings of it ending
Yeah. And so sometimes even having these rhythms of like closure, right? Like talking about it, sharing, even if it's you alone on your couch, like looking through pictures of the summer and allowing yourself to feel sad that it's over. Or looking through pictures with your friends that transitioned and moved away, and allowing the feelings that bubble up to come, right? Of like, gosh, it was just so fun, or it was so easy, or so life-giving, or whatever feelings, whatever language. But even that as kind of a way to give yourself some prompting to feel that, rather than like, okay, go feel, we have 5 minutes before class starts, right? But like some prompting, because there are probably some things that you might naturally avoid because it'll evoke a feeling, like, like I don't want to like look at that letter from them or that note or whatever. So when you are aware of some of those things, intentionally setting aside space to go and do that. How does that sound as I say that to you?
No, it's like that makes sense. I think I could easily evoke like sadness, or like I definitely could easily cry even now, of just like the reason I'm sad, which I have processed and talked with like some other people. Like the reason I'm sad is I feel threatened of like people moving into the space that I once had. I see that, or the story I'm telling myself is I see that on their social media, or I offered something to be happening and they couldn't make it, but they're doing other things instead. And just like, that's hurtful. And it's someone that I love hanging out with and I miss hanging out with. So it's like all those good things, like this loss is because it was so good. Like I'm sad because it's good, and it can be different and better. But yeah, for sure, I think I could easily evoke with prompting those emotions. I think I just like don't want to do it.
Yeah. It's
So,
hard. And the thing is, like, your type 7 structure, part of, it coming online is that it is trying to protect you.
right.
We take into
I
the
don't know if it'd be
radar.
helpful. It's like I could go
Yes.
cry right now, but it's like, is there a right way? Like, let's go think. Like that definitely. Let's go process. It's like, do I need to go cry right now? Like that's actually some of my thoughts. Like, do I need to go? Is that the right way to go through this right now?
Hmm.
Or it's like I'm frustrated, so it's like, how can I justice seeking, being like, what you did made me upset, because I had friends being like, that was really shitty what he did, etc. Like your
Hmm.
friend did. Like, I can't believe he would do that. I mean, like, I want to go. Like, I don't want to cry. It's like I'm mad. It's like, this
Yeah.
is hurtful, but I'm like, I do miss us just hanging out. Or you, I just didn't feel like prioritized. I think it's like that kind of loss. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
afraid that the processing would be the right way or not. Like going to go cry would be the right thing to do or not.
Yeah. And the reality is it can be in multiple orders. But the biggest thing is, as you become aware of an emotion, giving it a name, and then also allowing yourself to feel it. Because it is helpful to name it, right? If that feels like, ooh, I can't do anything more than to name it, right? Like, be gracious with yourself. Because again, like, part of that type 7 structure, you will naturally fill out negativity, like things that are discouraging to where you're heading, that are painful or hurt, right? Like, it's part of what makes 7s really resilient. But the problem is, now that you are a conscious adult, you don't need your type structure to protect you all the time, right? You needed it in childhood. That was part of how we made our way through. Right. It's hard to filter things and know what is and what is not us and what is about us. But now that you're an adult, you can survive crying, in a simple way, right? Like, that will not destroy you. Right. And sometimes what happens for 7s is it feels like, if I like sink into my fear around this, or if I sink into my sadness around this, like, I'm afraid I'll get stuck. Like, I'm afraid I'll never come out of this, right?
I can't start the school year like this.
And the thing is, you can, the resilience that is true of you, if that has been true of you thus far, and being able to pick yourself up by your bootstraps and be positive and see the silver lining and keep going, that resilience carries over in your ability to sink into the emotion that you're feeling and make it out okay.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. I think it's helpful just to think of sitting with the emotion. And I have prolonged getting the emotions wheel. It's like when an author just so easily gives voice to something that everyone's thought. You're like, oh, I didn't have the words to say it. It's like, I just need a flow chart.
Mm-hmm.
If this,
totally.
Go here.
For sure. I mean, even with like the 7s that I coach regularly, they will have a feeling chart that like sits in front of them while we're coaching. Because it's like learning a foreign language, right? Like, you need to have your cheat sheet for your Spanish words. Like, Absolutely. It's the same with feelings.
Absolutely. I would totally agree with that.
Yeah. Another practice that I often offer is called the welcoming prayer. It's a simple guided meditation that helps you process your emotions and sit with them. And sometimes having someone tell you, like, step 1, do this, and then you just do it, and then you wait for them to tell you the next thing. Sometimes that's really helpful. I can send that to you as well. And just as a support around it, because sometimes it feels like you're walking into the Wild West and you might get lost there.
Right.
And sometimes you feel like you need a guide. Yes, for sure.
Awesome. Thank you. I love that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it is a very short amount of time. We've come to the end of our time. But you are always welcome to reach out if there's other things that come up. I'm happy to be curious with you. I also, I have people that do regular coaching rhythms, or even just like check-in coaching rhythms. And so if you get to a place where it feels helpful to have some support, you're always welcome to reach out to me, and we can find a time to schedule something. So
thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
For sure. Yeah. Well, it's nice to get to connect with you.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, till next time.
Okay, bye-bye.
Hey, Enneagram friends. Right now, I am forming type groups of people that are learning together in kind of a workshop style, but they're all the same Enneagram type. And if you've never had the experience to meet with others of your same Enneagram type, I'm telling you, it's really a life-changing experience. Getting to hear from others that think the same way, or that act the same way, or have similar feelings. There's a lot of solidarity that comes in being able to meet with others of the same Enneagram type, but also a lot of learning and growth that can happen as you are navigating life, and people have different practices or approaches that have helped them along the way. So there is an interest form linked in the show notes that you can fill out to express interest in joining a type group. If there's enough interest for your specific Enneagram number, we'll go ahead and get started and start meeting in November. If there's not quite enough interest right away, we'll wait and meet in January, where more people have a chance to fill out the interest form and join in. There will be 4 sessions for your type group. We'll talk about type-specific things that have to do with just your number, growth practices, awareness, self-awareness, and compassion for your type as well. We'll talk about things like instincts and subtypes, some of the things that are a little bit more challenging to talk about when all the other numbers are present, because it's just too much information to get that specific. Submitting the interest form does not commit you to joining the group. It's just to get a sense of who's interested and how we might put these groups together. Fill out the interest form today so that you don't miss out on your chance to join the next type group.